for the city of Shawnee. I'm the project manager for this visioning process. What we're going to do tonight is a bit different than the other meetings. So if you've been for the town hall meetings, you'll notice there's no display board sitting out and around. So this is more of a listening session. We're going to take a couple minutes and do a quick overview so everyone has a chance to get the same background information if you haven't been to the other meetings. And then you'll have a chance to come up here and speak. And at that point, it'll be more of us listening, and we'll lay out some ground rules before we get started. But we did want to take a couple of minutes and do a brief overview of the project. This is about essentially how we use an historic icon in the community going forward, how best to stretch your taxpayer dollars so that we have a plan in place as we go after additional funding in the future that is solid and is able to show potential granting agencies what Shawnee would like to do with this historic structure and how uses can fit together potentially in a way that benefits the community as a whole. So having said that, normally it's if you hit this button, it goes forward. So, for those of you that weren't at the city commission meeting last night, the mice and the machine in the back are a bit tired from a marathon meeting, so they may not have had a complete nap. But I will thank our IT folks for being available tonight. This session is, my understanding, is being recorded and be available to watch later as well. So with that said, once the slide comes up, we'll go ahead and start through that. And again, it's a brief overview. And if you've been here for the other town hall meetings, what has been on those presentation boards is reflected in this PowerPoint, although we will be a bit more brief. So this will be more of a Reader's Digest version, if you will. We did this session at the request of a number of individuals that said we just would like to have a chance to just say something publicly. And so as that comes up, we'll lay out the ground rules for tonight, and they are up here at the podium when you come up to speak, as a reminder to everyone. So here's the ground rules for tonight, and these were posted in advance. When you come up to the podium, we'd ask that you would state your name, your residence, and if you've signed the sign-in sheet in the back already, you don't have to worry about signing it up here. If you haven't done that and you come in late, we'll try and get a sign-in sheet for you. Please identify if you're speaking on behalf of yourself or an organization. We ask that you be respectful. Profanity and personal attacks will not be tolerated, and you'll be asked to sit down. Please don't speak for or against a candidate, for office, issues on a ballot pending an election, personnel issues, and city business involving arbitration or litigation. Speakers are going to be limited to 2 minutes, and time cannot be yielded to another individual. So it's a bit different than what you might be used to at city commission meetings. Andrea, our city manager, will be keeping time tonight, and she'll let you know visually when your time is up. So please be respectful of that. We want to give everyone else a chance to speak that wishes. If you said you'd like to speak, but you change your mind, when your name is called, just indicate so, and that's okay too. So with that said, brief overview of this process so far. Staff was asked to, again, create a visioning process for how best to use this structure going forward. It was not a question, and it never has been, if the city's going to do the repair work or not. We're going to, but we want a good game plan for what we do with this building afterwards. So with that said, some brief history. The structure was built in 1903. It includes a main area of 3,300 square feet. That includes restrooms, baggage, and a waiting area. There's a step-down express area of 900 square feet as well, 600 square feet of a partial basement, and then a 500 square foot covered breezeway. It's a very iconic structure. In 1977, the city acquired the depot and leased it from the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad. Different leases have been put into effect over time between the city and the Historic Society. The city between 85 and 86 purchased the land the depot was on. And then in 97 and 98, the leases were renewed with the Pottawatomie County Historic Society. So over time, various pieces have been purchased and then put into lease agreements for use. Having said that, up until 1973, this was a rail depot, an active one. From 1982 to 2020, it was a museum with railroad and county historic artifacts. In 2021, the museum operations primarily moved to the new building, the Milburn Center. The building has been leased for $1 a year, and over the most recent years, the city has paid out money for utilities as well as insurance. If we were to look at a current market value in a rough type of analysis, a building that could be fully renovated like this would capture around $75,000 a year in potential revenue. The city is looking at that number from the standpoint of, could this building generate any income potentially going forward to help with the operations and maintenance going forward? If we rented this over the last 44 years, the revenue generated at that amount would have been $1 to $1.2 million. The city has in the past given money under an agreement that's still in effect to help with the new building the Pottawatomie County Historic Society has built and is operating north of the depot. And then in 2020 and into 2021, the city utilized the services of GH2 Architects. They did a study of the building envelope as well as the interior. So if you've been at the previous town hall meetings and you would have seen the boards over here showing the existing conditions, those are pictures from that study that illustrate the issues with the roof, the downspouts, the walls, and the interior. And these are examples of those existing conditions. Again, this is from the GH2 study that was done. So you can see where there's cracks in the exterior stone. You can see where roof tiles have cracked. You can see where flashing has not been even, and then how other material has started to rot over time due to all the water damage, not only through the roof, but also behind in and through the walls. These are some additional examples of existing conditions on the exterior as well as going into the interior of the building. And then some additional ones as well. So you can see how the water damage has built up and then seeped through over time. There are a number of different funding sources available to do renovation work and remodeling, but again, that would depend on what uses we're looking at in a building like this. And so eventually we'll have to come up with a good game plan to approach the right funding sources. And then as part of the research, staff looked at how other depots have been reused and what uses are in those buildings now. And so these are some of the examples from the previous town hall meetings. Again, those display boards that were out in the hallway, these are some of those pictures. So we've seen examples of depots that have been renovated to use for things like event space, art studios and art galleries, as well as retail and office incubator type space. These are examples from around the country. We've also seen examples where depots have been renovated and used for passenger transit, passenger rail. Some communities are still fortunate to have Amtrak and long-distance passenger rail, so they're rehabbed for that. Some are used more for transit type. Oklahoma City, for example, their streetcar system uses a stop at the old depot. Some of the reuse examples we've seen include restaurants, coffee shops, things like that, and again, from around the country. Or a mix of things. This is an example of old railroad depot that has been used for a museum, a gift shop, as well as a restaurant. And then there is civic event space. One community we found in Texas used an old Santa Fe depot for city offices because they needed to move. We've seen examples of buildings being rehabbed into other civic spaces like displays for zoos, indoor recreation, things of that nature as well. And then again, back to, we talked for a minute about retail incubator, but also office incubator is another example that we found in the research. And so we threw in a number of examples to show just how space can be used in various ways. Whether it be an old warehouse like you see from Sioux Falls here, or an actual rail depot like you see from Holdridge, Nebraska. And this has a number of offices in it, including a dentist office. So what you see in what would be the lower corner of, looks like a lobby, that's the lobby of a dentist office inside their old rail depot. Some buildings that we see are a combination. For example, Newton, Kansas still has an active Amtrak station, but then there are 2 attorney offices inside of their depot as well that use some of that space. And then some depots get rehabbed into office space like the one in Tulsa, and they include the historic design and historic features from that history into the redesign of the building and its new use. So again, to reiterate, the city desires to come up with a process and an idea of where to go from here as we look at rehabbing this building and repairing it. How can we use an iconic structure once again and put new life into it, and what uses could be in there? And we want that so that we have a good game plan going forward as we look at additional funding sources to know who to ask for and how much and when. So if you haven't yet, there's an online survey through the city's website you can do. If you took the FAQ sheet at the back when you signed in, there's a link on there to the survey as well. There's also a link on the city's website to all of the presentation boards from the town hall meetings, if you've been to the other ones, that you can look at as well in depth at home on your leisure. Okay, so that's the last slide. And with that, what we'll do as far as the listening part, we'll call a person's name that has said they'd like to speak. We'll let them come up, and when they're ready, Andrea, the city manager, will start the timer. And again, just to reiterate, 2 minutes. You cannot yield your time. If you decide you don't want to speak, just let us know when we call your name. Let us know if you're speaking on behalf of yourself or an organization. Please be respectful. We're not here to campaign for a public office or a ballot issue. We're not here to speak about personnel issues. We're here to speak about the structure and what we can do going forward with it. And these will be up here. So with that, and these are in no particular order of when someone signed in. This is Ryan grabbed the sheets and walked to the front. And if I mispronounce your name in advance, I will profusely apologize. So the first person I'm going to call up, Amy Camarada. If you still want to speak, floor is yours. Okay.
Amy Camarada, and for those that don't know, I live at the Shawnee Twin Lakes, Ward 2. I am pleased that the city is working in conjunction with the Potawatomi County Historical Society. I think in a historical building, we need to partner with our historical partners. I did notice on the slide that it said the city's going to devote an additional $300,000. Can't remember if it was to the depot or to PCHS, and I'm just curious if that is from the approved 1% tax or if that's in addition to that. If it's from the 1% tax, then it's the voters dedicating that money. And then finally, you know, whatever is done with it in conjunction with the museum, I would hope that it's something not necessarily like offices, but the ability for people to go in. So I don't know that retail's the best option, but with retail, obviously people get to go in and see the historical structure inside. If it's a, I don't think it could possibly be a restaurant, but if it was a restaurant, people can go inside. I'd just like to have an opportunity for more people to see the inside of the building as well as the outside. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Judith? Okay, would you like to come forward? Come on up. Yeah, floor is yours. I was about to pronounce your last name, but I was afraid I'd... Michener. Michener. Okay. Ms. Michener, the floor is yours.
My name is Judith Michener, and I am the volunteer curator for the Pottawatomie County Historical Society and Museum. And what I want to do is emphasize to the city the importance of that building. We, the Pottawatomie County Historical Society, are in the history business, that's true, but we're also in the tourism business. We realize that there is a tremendous potential for tourism down at the east end of Main Street with the museum complexes that we'd like to see developed down there. But the key and the lodestone and the gold mine and the jewel in the crown is the Santa Fe Depot. She is on the National Register for a specific reason. She's the only building of her kind, only design of her kind in this country, and she's been drawing tourism. She's been drawing artists, craftsmen, photographers, and all kinds of tourists to this city for over 100 years, the way she is. We don't want her destroyed. We want her repaired. We want her structural integrity and her historical significance to be maintained. We're not against progress, but we are against destruction. We want to work with the city, building a possible tremendous tourism dollars to come into this city through that gold mine down there on the east end of Main Street. Please, we just want the city to understand the importance of that building. She is the only one of her kind. And I repeat, she has been drawing tourists to this city, to downtown Shawnee, for over 100 years, all by herself. So I just want people to understand that she is not something to be monkeyed with. Her structural integrity, her historic identity needs to be maintained. Yes, we want progress and we want to build for Shawnee, but we don't want destruction in the middle of it.
Okay, Rob Morris, the floor is yours, sir.
Hello, my name is Rob Morris. I'm over by Homeland on Harrison, Ward 1. My personal opinion on the depot is I'd like to have a museum. I think you could have Amtrak or a bus depot there too that would take up very little space on the property at all. I think that's something we could look at that would be revenue generating and help out the depot. My biggest gripe about the depot has been the fact that 2 years ago we had the money to do the roof. Pandemic hit, so be it. However, since then, we've only spent $35,000 on a study that told us what was wrong. And since then, it's been nothing but getting worse. So, of course, the price goes up because of inaction. So let's make the building stop leaking first, and then let's talk about what we want to put in it so that it doesn't just get worse and eventually fall down around us. Thank you.
All right. Ken Landry, the floor is yours.
I'm Ken Landry, the director down at the Pottawatomie County Museum. Most of you know that. It's pretty obvious that I want it to be a museum, and we're going to put a railroad museum in there like was always intended. I guess my question tonight is I kind of question last night the comment was made that the vote online was 2-1 for other uses. And I'm trying to figure out how in the world that you what creative number crunching that we did to do that. The only way that myself and others have figured that out is that maybe the museum was we against the world type thing. It must have been the museum numbers against all other 6 uses at the time is the only way I could come up with that number. So I'd like clarification on that, because according to my calculations and others, it was about 4-to-1 online for the museum against any other individual use. And in-house survey, it was about 5-to-1 for the museum. So I just kind of question that and like to see the answer to that. Things are progressing, I want to say, and I appreciate it. I hope that we're going to work with the city now and look forward to doing so. And so that we can make a museum complex. We plan to have 3, as you know, a railroad, the Pot County Museum, and a firefighter museum that we're working on currently. Thank you.
Okay, so the last person that signed up, Jerry, lives on Coker Road. Okay.
I'm Jerry Mankin, former firefighter, former fire chief for a while. And what I'd like to say about this, it makes me feel good to hear that apparently we're going to save the building. It sounds like, if I understood correctly, it's going to be restored, but the use of it is still up in the air. One thing that I would like to point out is that the Shawnee Fire Department has used that symbol as a patch for their uniforms for several years. And I think it would be inappropriate to use this for anything other than a museum or some kind of a non-profit thing, and still have our guys walking the streets with this on their shoulder, advertising somebody's private business. So that's one thing that I see wrong with this. Another thing, when this was designed, we had a lot of them printed up, and these are probably distributed to most every state in the union by now, and sold in foreign countries. As a matter of fact, my understanding is that there was an exchange made of this for a Ukrainian patch when the meltdown happened at their electric plant over there. So my main concern is that this thing be restored, and secondary, I think it needs to stay a museum.
Okay, so those are the only individuals that said they'd like to speak. So having said that, I want to reiterate that the survey will be available to the public until June 10th. There'll be a town hall meeting tomorrow, and then a town hall meeting Thursday night at 5:30. Tomorrow's meeting will be at 11. They'll be here both be here in the chambers. And if you've been to the other town hall sessions, they'll be in a similar format. You'll have a chance to walk around to different stations and interact with staff and ask questions, do a preference survey over the alternatives, and then drop a comment card. If you have a question or a comment you'd like to make for tonight, there's 3x5 cards in the back where you signed in. You can fill one out and leave one in the box, and staff will collect those and with the others, tabulate those, share those publicly, and then try and provide answers as we're best able to. Since this was a listening session, staff's intention was not to try and respond tonight, just to give everyone a chance to come to the podium and share their thoughts. With the meeting being recorded, we will make sure that recording is made available as well in social media. So, and people who can't be here tonight for whatever reason can watch it, or if you want to watch it again, you have that availability. So let me say thank you. I appreciate you all being here. I know anytime you come to a public meeting, it takes time out of your schedule. So please know that it is appreciated. Staff will be around if you want to ask specific things or walk through different things afterwards, or find ways to get additional comments in. So with that, thank you. We thank you again for being here, and we wish you good night.